Okay, great, perfect. So, hello everybody. Let me take my mask off. I'll probably be more easily heard. Hello everybody. Welcome to AVTCORE at IETF 122. We happen to have a rather full agenda this time because more people came up with stuff than I was expecting. So let's get started. Note well, if you are here, um, IETF has a bunch of processes. If you're here and participating, you are agreeing to abide by them. Um, Particularly, we like to remind people of this because we often get people from other communities who need RTP payloads for their codecs. If there's IPR related to your draft, you must say so. You must disclose any IPR your employer controls, and there are sanctions available if you don't do that. So please disclose any IPR you control that you know about related to work or stuff you're talking about. Also, we have a code of conduct. Please treat everybody with professionalism and respect. And if you have any problems or see any problems, please talk to the IETF Ombuds team. All right, meeting tips. If you're here in the room, please sign in to either the full client or the light client. If you're in the full client, please keep audio and video off, including audio playback off if you're in the room. You can have video playback on if you want to see the slides. Remote participants, if you're hearing me, you figured out how to join, but please keep audio and video off unless you're chairing or presenting or otherwise speaking during the session. And echo cancellation has gotten better than it was, but it's still not always perfect. So please, use of a headset when you're talking is recommended. This is actually not just remote meeting, but also local meeting tips. If you want to speak at the queue, please use the tool to click the raise hand button. If you're remote, when you're called on, you need to enable your audio. You may also enable your video if you like. That's helpful, not required, but they're separate. You have to enable both audio and video separately. Here are some resources. If you go to the PDF version, these are links. About this meeting, we have a new chair, Marius. Our note takers are Youngkwan and Mo. So are you both doing that in the good? So thank you for volunteering. Mo, I sort of bullied into it, but I told him last meeting that I would take notes for him if he took notes for me. So he agreed to that. And of course, in memoriam, our former co-chair Bernardo Boba passed away February 1st. We'll remember him fondly. This is a great loss to everyone. There was a better tribute than I can do at the plenary last night. So if you didn't see that, go back and take a look at that to remember him. All right, so our draft status. I've made quite a few changes to this slide in the last few days, so that's very exciting. We have published a new RFC, which is the RTP payload registry draft. So that's very exciting. That closes the registry, which nobody knew where it came from in the first place. And then we have 3 drafts that have been sitting on this slide for some of them for 6 years, which are now 2 of them are in Auth 48 done, and 1 of them is in Auth 48. The one remaining issue is that Magnus, as designated expert, wanted to check with the working group. There was a change to the URI specified for that packet, so for that header extension. So if you have, I don't think, it sounded like the only people probably using it was Mo, who said that's fine because as it happens, that wasn't the thing that the only previous implementation in Chrome was using anyway. So you had to sort of regex match it anyway. But this is, but if you do have any issues, this will, I forget what you put as the deadline for that, Magnus, but it's relatively soon. So please comment on that. And then once that's done, that's the only remaining N on the whole cluster. All the authors have approved the drafts as they are, so we can get those 3 published as soon as we've converged on that. So J2K SCL, Stefan Wenger agreed to shepherd that. So thank you, Stefan. And I publication requested that earlier this week, so that is going to Gori. Magnus?
Not on this one, but well, on the actual registry closing, we were you and me were in the MediaMan group, and so I think there will be something to keep an eye on, because we will try to work with MediaMan to clarify the RTP registration there a bit on and having more explicit information. So, but that will go into the updated media types registration rules, etc., and how the registry is going to be presented in the future.
That's a good point. Yeah. So if you care about RTP payload registries and being able to figure out which media types are RTP payloads, pay attention to MediaMan. We'll be discussing that there. So green metadata, we had a working group last call, which mostly got feedback from the people, on the ISO side or whatever spec that is, but not so much on the RTP side. We did have a comment from Eric Sprang. Am I pronouncing that right? Sprang? Sprang? I don't speak. I probably can't do Swedish, so I won't try. So that was on March 5th. So I would, if the authors for green metadata are here, I would like if they could respond to that, because that was some useful RTP response. Further draft, we're having a second working group last call on V3C. There were some issues, particularly in regard to the SGP negotiation parts of that, and exactly what happens if the peer understands 2D video but not 3D video, and would by default try to negotiate 2D video, and if that's okay. So especially if you are an expert in like offer answer negotiation and the like, please take a look at that. We have a second working group last call. In general, if you take a look at that and tell us if you think it's fine or not, and then we'll proceed to publication if we get enough comments on it. Otherwise, I will beg people for more comments. We have a number of adopted drafts. Many of them are being talked about today. The two that are not on this agenda today, which are worth saying specifically notable things about, on HEVC WebRTC, Philip Hankey will be taking over the primary author, because that was one of Bernard's drafts, which obviously can't continue. Richard, did you have something to say? Okay. And then the RTP volumetric media ROI, we agreed to make that a working group item, and but that needs submission as a working group draft. So the authors on that, if you're here, please submit that as draft IETF AVTCORE RTP volumetric media ROI. And then S-frame, which I assume is what Richard is here to talk about.
Yep, I missed the call on the mailing list. I am here to express my interest. I've been chatting with a bunch of the browser folks. There's starting to be some interest in getting end-to-end encryption working in WebRTC. I expect this will be an ingredient. So I would suggest probably parking for now, whatever that means in the IETF process.
It's just flipping a flag in the,
okay.
So it doesn't show up as current work items that are expired, which is always a bad state.
Yeah, so I think it's exactly what the plan looks like. It's still getting sorted out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're ready to pick up the pen on this yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'll need somebody to pick up the pen, because I think Peter Thatcher has moved on to other stuff and he's not working on this anymore, and I don't think UN really has time. So
yeah, so
we'll need somebody.
I think we between me and Suhas and some Chromies, we'll find folks to work on it if it turns out being necessary for WebRTC. But I would say within a month or two, we should be able to advise the working group on whether this looks necessary for WebRTC.
So I might put it in parked state just until we get information back, and then we'll unpark it as soon as we have a plan for who's going to take over editing.
Yeah, I would basically just say don't unadapt it yet. Or
yeah, no, we're not going to unadopt it. We're just I don't. Yeah. So all right, great.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and the note takers, did you get that? mostly? Good. All right, so GitHub setup. We've moved, we have a GitHub organization for this working group now. We've moved a bunch of drafts into there. A few have not been. It's not mandatory, but it's useful for people to find them. So if you have a draft that has a GitHub repo, talk to me and we will help you get it transferred into the AVTCORE organization so things can be found. So these are the ones that still need, the three we mentioned here are the ones that still need doing. S-frame I had in italics, I didn't know if we were going to park that, but we will figure that out. And then there is a repo whose name is listed here, which you do a pull request against, and then it gets added to the activity this week email that goes to the mailing list. Either you can do that or I can do that as you like, but we should just make sure we know who's doing it. All right, so here's our agenda. As you can see, that it's very small type, so let's try to get started. And so I guess the first will be V3C.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me in the room?
Yes.
Could I
All right,
take
brilliant.
just a second first and do, can I?
Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Gory.
it's Gory, and I've lost the window with the meet echoing, sorry. We don't seem to have any proceedings materials for the meeting. So if I go to the meeting materials, there's nothing there.
Really? I mean, we certainly had the agenda.
You have an agenda, but you don't have any slides. So
Oh,
I
did
was
this? I think
hoping to look
when
at
did
them.
you check? I think did you upload this? I think.
Okay, but that was just a comment. It's
Okay,
really
yeah.
good for
We'll make sure.
participants.
We'll make sure the slides are in there. But before we. Okay, go ahead, Laurie.
All right, good, thank you. So why don't we then just move ahead and to the next slide?
Oh, do you want me to hand you slide control?
Oh no, I mean I only have one slide, so if you can just
Okay.
flip to the next one, so I
Okay.
can talk it through. All right, brilliant, thank you. So as already informed, the second working group last call is ongoing. It runs until 27th of March, if I'm not mistaken. So do have a look. Let us know if there's something that needs fixing or if it looks good. Just we appreciate the support. The editing history is now available on GitHub. We did migrate it from our personal GitHub into this AVTCORE GitHub project or repository rather. And here's a brief list of issues that we've closed since the previous working group last call, and Jonathan actually clarified these quite nicely. So there were definitely these issues when it came to the SDP signaling and then the offer-answer clarifications. In this current draft, we've tried to cover all of those aspects, so it should be there. Post working group last call, like after we issued the second one, we actually got some feedback from Iana as well, and I created a new issue for that one. It's very minimal feedback. It's basically just requesting us to change a little bit of the terminology from groups to subgroups and so on. So that's an editorial change that we will then implement after when we can actually get the document again. And that's it. Like, I don't want to take any more time.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, as I said, please everybody take a chance to review this, and make sure that you think it's right. Oh, and thank you, Marius, for uploading the slides to the data tracker. All right, so RTP over quick, Mathis. And I think I can give you the clicker and transfer control to the clicker.
Cool. Hi.
Yes. Does that work?
I don't think so.
Said.
Ah, I can see it. No.
It said slide clicker, transfer slide.
No, I'm pressing the buttons, but it's not doing anything.
Maybe the battery's dead. All right, I can drive it.
Okay, cool. I only have 3 slides.
Okay.
All right, next slide then. These are the updates we did since the last interim meeting. The first one is just editorial. We added some acknowledgements for the implementers that have implemented RTP over quick so far. And the second one is similar to the draft before. We got an early IANA review, which asked us to replace the word heading in our IANA consideration sections with the words registry subgroup, which I created a pull request for 235, which I will merge after the meeting if there are no objections. And 234 was merged actually, so yeah, that's all. Next slide. We continue doing interop testing. There are details in the wiki. It's not completely up to date because the new implementation that I mentioned here is not in there yet, but I will do that after the meeting. I only got to test this one this week. This new implementation is in GStreamer. There's a plugins for GStreamers or GStreamer plugin repository for plugins written in Rust. So if you're looking for this, you will find it there. It is interoperable with my implementation, but it does not implement the stream per RTP packet mode yet. So you can do RTP packets over datagrams, or you can open one stream and send all the packets over that same stream. But the two modes that are there are interoperable with my implementation. I have not tested this with other implementations yet. But the nice thing that I tested with this implementation and my implementation is that we can do multiple streams there, which was one of the test cases that we always mentioned in the past that we hadn't tested yet. So my implementation and that implementation actually can do multiple media streams at the same time, multiplexed over RTP real quick. Yeah, next slide, which is already the last one, I think. We're going to continue doing interop tests. SDP will be worked on, which is the next presentation by Spencer, I think, and Victor is working on this too. And yeah, I think, so we are ready for working group last call, I think. I would like to hear the working group or chair's opinion on this. We have not done any major changes since Vancouver, I think. There were only editorial changes since then. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I recall is that we thought we wanted to leave this, you know, somewhat semi-parked while we worked on SDP, just to make sure that we didn't discover anything in SDP that needed changes, and while interop testing continued, so that we made sure that we were clear for the interop. But I mean, we could certainly do an initial working group last call if you think it's ready, and then maybe hold off on the pub rec until.
Yeah, I think
the other documents
yeah, it made sense to wait for the interop tests, I think. I'm not sure if we need to wait for SDP until it's finished. I think at least an initial working group last call would help get more feedback. I think if people are reading, I don't know who or how many people have read the draft recently. So if I think if we do a working group last call, we might get more feedback sooner, which would otherwise turn up later and then like delay.
That's reasonable. Yeah. Okay. So, Spencer, did you have something to say, or are you just getting ready for the next presentation?
Yeah, thank you. I actually did want to say that the reason we were waiting on PubRec for this was to make sure that we had some way to actually set up and tear down rock connections other than just manual configuration. So that was the biggest reason to hold off on PubRec. But you know, the part where we said we would do working group last call while we were working on SDP. You know, holding off on that for a little while is fine. In case we find something that needs to change while we're working on SDP. But we're not finding very much like that yet. So, thank you.
All right. So certainly it sounds like we probably can look at doing at least an initial working group last call, and there may be, you know, large comments. Who knows? But yeah, I mean,
I mean, if you get a lot of comments and have to make a lot of changes, then it probably makes sense to have another one later after we fix that.
And I think, you know, and certainly I want to get more confident about the interop than before we go to pub, but I think certainly that can be potentially in parallel with an initial working group last call if need be.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. And oh, good, we're ahead of time. Spencer?
I will do my best to keep us on schedule.
Do you want slide control, or do you want me to drive the slides?
It's after 3 o'clock in the morning my time. Is it okay if you drive?
Sure.
Okay, so this is an update for the working group. This is still an individual draft, but we are ready for more working group awareness. We've been making changes based on feedback that we got from the virtual interim, and that's what's in the editor's version in GitHub now. Last week, Harold provided some very helpful comments and we'll be working on his comments between this week, IETF 122, and the next, whenever the next interim is. Next slide, please. Okay, so this the draft location and structure are unchanged from -00. So this is slides like this are slides that are unchanged or barely changed from the 00 draft that was presented at the virtual interim. Next slide, please. The proto identifiers that we're registering are unchanged. Next slide, please. The new attribute names that we have had in 00 are unchanged at this point. We do have a question about whether we need quick datagrams, and that will be a fine question for us to ask the working group very soon. Next slide, please. The reusing existing SDP attribute names has changed somewhat. We replaced, so we actually did contact the TLSID authors, and thank you, Roman, for the feedback. Roman suggested that we use TLSID instead of connection, which is the way that works. And we worked out new text with Roman that's in the editor's version. Next slide, please. The implementation topics have changed somewhat, and that this is actually getting into the parts of the draft that are most affected by feedback from Harold, and actually feedback about Harold's feedback from Jonathan. Also, thank you, Jonathan. Next slide. The example has changed only to be, we stopped using connection and started using TLSID in the example. That was the only change. Next slide, please. The security considerations, we had questions in the 00 draft, but we've made choices. I want to thank Richard for picking up S-frame. We are, some approach like S-frame is kind of the best we can do without an actual active draft. Next slide, please. So the IANA consideration section is unchanged from -00 because most of the details are in the body of the document, and most of those details haven't changed anyway. But next slide, please. This is so. This is these questions have all moved to a single section for easy reference. Up at I guess it's version section 1.2, and the only thing that's added there is questions about any recommendations that we make for using ROC on multiple quick paths. Menace and I had a quick conversation within the last 24 hours, and what this is intended to mean is that we excluded ROC over multipath quick because multipath quick was still in ID exist status in the quick working group. So that was like a definitional thing, and we excluded thinking about quick connection migration because we figured that most of the issues that we had to work through with with multipath quick, we would also have to work through for quick connection migration anyway. So we just kind of waited on that. Next slide, please. So this is the good news. This is good news for the working group on the draft. We did get excellent and helpful comments from Harold. Thank you, Harold. And I've summarized his comments here. The comments came in on private email, and we're going to respond back to the working group with when we are, you know, as we were working through this. We've only had time to understand the comments. We have not started working on them yet. Like I said, they came in last week, which is excellent timing. Next slide, please. So the good news is all the feedback that we got from Harold is clear and actionable, and Spencer and Victor are pretty sure that we know what to do with these comments. So I'm pretty happy about that. Next slide, please. We got feedback from Jonathan about the comments that we had from Harold, and we had these two important points that Jonathan brought up. We had included the chairs in early discussion as we were, you know, making sure that the chairs were aware of the feedback we were getting. The first one is this is a quote from Jonathan's email. That this is vastly underestimating the complexity of interaction between Rock and Bundle. Mattis and I have, again, within the last 24 hours, had a quick chat about this and said, oh, yes, we need to talk about this because Bundle is muxing multiple media descriptions onto a transport connection. So does Flow ID. How do these work together, if at all? Examples, please. Jonathan pushed a little bit harder than Harold did about how it works if we can do UDP, but we can't do UDP quick. So what, you know, basically, is there a way to automatically choose between these in ICE when we're looking at ICE candidate pairs? Jonathan, I think I'm correctly characterizing what you said as you're not sure if that's possible at all. Harold allowed for the possibility that would be out of scope for now. And Jonathan said we still need a way to use ICE to set up peer-to-peer ROC connections. Jonathan and Harold, please tell me what I'm getting right and wrong.
I'd say I think there's two things I'd say here. I'm speaking as an individual here, despite not wanting to stand up. So first, the question, I think, I don't think you're going, I think deciding between, UDP RTP and UDP quick RTP is not going to be an ICE style choice, because either you support it or you don't. It's not going to be something where, you have to discover based on your network topology which one works. Now, how are you going to say that in SDP? I'm a little afraid that, unfortunately, the only syntax we have for that is capneg, which nobody's ever implemented. And if you're, anybody who's of a certain generation of SDP experience, eyes should be very wide and possibly fleeing in horror. But barring that, I'm not quite sure what we would do. So I don't quite know what the right answer is there. The other thing is, to your last bullet, I'm not sure the to use ICE is necessary for that sentence. So we need a way to set up peer-to-peer ROC connections. I don't know that necessarily needs to be ICE. ICE is one option. People have proposed other options.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I said, we're talking about feedback from you. So thank you for additional feedback. What my intention here was shorthand for exactly what you said, which was that we need to be able to set up peer-to-peer ROC connections, and if we needed to do ICE to make that happen, then we would have to figure out how to make that happen.
Right. And I know there's been interest in doing a direct peer-to-peer
Yeah.
quick, but they weren't pursuing it because they didn't have the use case which needed it, because they weren't sure they'd get it right. But maybe this is now that use case, so this is now an opportunity for that work to get done. On the other hand, it's
I'm really happy that we're making progress on this draft, because we're fleshing out other questions as we go. Thank you. Harold.
Thank you, and thanks for the praise for my private email. I thought I would send a few nits, and then it went uphill from there. My main concern, as of the project I'm leading, is of course how to do this with WebRTC.
Right.
And in WebRTC, we have the concept that you start by negotiating a connection, or by describing the connection you want, and then you add candidates, and the candidates can have different transports. So what we found was that the protocol field is in SDP was not only useless, it was actively harmful. So
yes.
So I'm worried about the idea that I would have, in order to experiment with this, I have to come up with a completely new way of controlling the API, because making that kind of API change is far too slow. But a rule of thumb is that if you don't know how to do something, you shouldn't try to standardize how to do it.
Yes.
Which is what led me to say that we might consider the possibility that this is out of scope for now. Which would be sad, but possible. One word about Flow ID. Flow ID in the RTP over quick session, RTP over quick document, describes an RTP session, which is a different beast from the word session in so many other contexts, including SDP. I found it surprising that we would add another layer of multiplexing there, since we rarely have a use for multiple RTP sessions over the same set of connections, and if we really needed one, we could just set up another quick transport for it. But that's for my feeling for that document was that it was so close to finish that it wasn't worth trying to save that useless byte. It's just one byte. But when we negotiate SDP, we should definitely say that we negotiate within one such session. Or two in the case that we don't multiplex RTP and RTCP. By the way, I am all in favor of saying that we always multiplex RTP and RTCP, because that makes life so much simpler. But that's for others to defend, whether we still need to support demuxing out. So Flow ID is Flow ID and bundle are at completely different levels. Bundle is bundling things within an RTP session, and Flow ID is multiplexing different RTP sessions. So it's not so much that they don't work together, it's that they are irrelevant to each other, I think.
Well, they're nested within each other.
Yeah.
I I think I agree with what Jonathan and Harold are saying, and Mattis is in the room if he disagrees. I think, like I say, we just mostly that Mattis and I are 12 time zones apart right now. We've not had a chance to talk about this in detail. I think what you just said is where we will end up.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Mathis?
So I think we talked about Flow ID a couple of times already in the last couple of years when we talked about RTP real quick. If we decide to remove it from the draft, I think like it's quite late to do that. I think what we could do is like we have an ALPN, for example, to set up RTP real quick as it is. We could add another one that says this is RTP real quick without Flow ID. I don't know if like many people have a use case for the Flow ID. I don't have a large deployment because like I'm a PhD student and I don't really I can't say I have a deployment that definitely needs or use case that needs the Flow ID. If there's no one that says, or if everyone says we don't need it, then we can also like probably remove it completely. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we added it in the first place when we thought we'd be sending other things besides RTP also over that quick connection, but I think we decided not to do that because it was too hard.
I think at one point, I think last year or so, I presented 2 drafts which explain how you could still do that in the future with the extensions. And I think that would still be useful, but it would technically probably also work without the Flow ID. But you have to do the multiplexing as we do in UDP, for example. Like we have this draft that explains how you multiplex RTP and the other things. But then you have to do the same thing in Quick, and I think Flow ID would be much easier.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's worth possibly, and again speaking individual here, people think possibly keep Flow ID, but say that in SDP you only define a single Flow ID for your bundle group, and you don't try to have multiple Flow IDs for a quick connection. You just have a single one, and then the point of this is that in the future we can use that to, disambiguate it from things that are not RTP in the same quick connection.
Right. And go ahead, Mattis.
I think that would be useful. Maybe make sure that we like put in the notes that we also check RTP over quick for sentences like you have to use different Flow IDs for, like make sure that it's actually allowed in RTP over quick. Okay. To use the same Flow ID for everything.
Good.
Yeah, and so it's probably helpful for me to say that Mattis and I are. Well, I'm an author on both the ROC draft and the SDP ROC draft, so I will talk to myself and I will talk to my co-authors on the 2 drafts, and we will do the right thing. And next slide, please.
Oh, Harold has something to say.
Oh, okay, sure. Thank you.
So in the current set of specs, you need a Flow ID to differentiate between RTP and RTCP when you do non-multiplexing of RTCP. Is anyone defending or having a use case for not multiplexing RTP and RTCP? I mean, it's just a byte, it's cheap.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth saying is at least part of the reason we have Flow ID, among several other reasons originally, was that allowed you to move between connections and datagrams. I think the ROC spec right now just says one direct, to do that, that you could do that in one direction, but that you could be getting the same Flow ID in datagrams and in a quick connection and in a quick stream or in datagram. So flipping back and forth there. How we said that because we did not want to just add restrictions as we were going, but it's going to be good to let people say that is what Mattis and Spencer were doing actually useful to people. but that will be a fine question for working group Let's Call on Rock.
Yeah.
Could I get Harold? Are you still in queue?
No. All right. Okay.
Okay, cool. So next steps, obviously, for us to respond to review comments from Harold and Jonathan, expect us to produce a 01 draft for the next AVTCORE interim. Not asking for the chairs to poll for adoption of not asking the chairs to poll for adoption now. Not until we submit a 01. I'm observing that we got really helpful comments at the interim. We asked for reviewers at the interim. We got helpful review comments. So it seems that having the working group work on the draft is useful. Also, obviously, we'd like to invite any other reviewers who would like to provide early review comments. If you'd like to help, please raise your hand now. I will stop for a moment and see if I get hands.
We do have one hand. So.
Which person is connected to that hand?
Yeah. Hudit and Harold also. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. Harold's totally on the hook. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. Otherwise, we will see you at the interim.
Great.
It is always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. And next we have haptics.
Hello everyone. I'm going to present on RTP build haptics. So this is a working group draft. Yeah, next slide, please. So first of all, thanks to Jonathan for reviewing our draft. So we have updated our draft to reflect Jonathan's comment. Next slide, please. So from now on, I just a little bit summarize the updated sections. So first of all, we added FYI information in the section 5.4. Next slide, please. And we also updated the SDP section to clearly define the usage of each parameters. And we also updated how attributes are used for depending on stream types. Next slide, please. And we also updated SDP parameter descriptions, clarified which need to be negotiated and symmetric, and add more usage informations. Next slide, please. So you can see the detail, our discussion point in the AVTCORE mailing list. And I believe that the draft is ready for the working group last call. So, and we always welcome the feedbacks. Thank you.
Okay, great. So yeah, I think does anybody have any comments on the draft at this point? Otherwise, we will try to do a working group last call probably in the next few weeks or so, or for me, when I get home and over jet lag, or Marius doesn't have that problem, so maybe he'll do it, but I'll coordinate with him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is yours.
Oh, next one's also
yeah,
okay.
my one.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Hi again. This is a draft for the BDMC. So this is an individual draft. Next slide, please. So at the last IETF meeting, we received many comments from the working group. So first of all, thanks for that. So we updated many parts of the draft. So first of all, we revised the abstract and introduction to clarify the scope of our draft, and we also reviewed all of the SDP parameters. Next slide, please. And then after IETF meeting, we also received a few comments from the Sony and Nokia who works are involved in MPEG specifications. So based on that comment, we also updated our draft. So first of all, we updated the MPEG information based on the latest MPEG specifications. Next slide, please. And we also added the VDMC grouping to distinguish it from the V3C, as they have a different bit streams. And we also reviewed all of the SDP parameter again, and then we classified the parameter and rearranged the SDP parameters. And I think the last one is maybe that is the same as the other comment. So we got an email from the INI, and so just we had a minor update about the word. So that is, yeah, we update that. Next slide, please. So this is a very initial phase of this draft. So we always waiting the review. So this is this is a version 3 because we update 2 times to reflect those comments. So please review the document and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Are you asking for us to adopt it at this time, or?
No, I think that we need to get more idea first from the groups, and then maybe we can think about it next ITF meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, APV next. And Mo, your co-note taker is presenting, so.
Okay, so this is an update of RTP payload format drafts on APB. If you go to next page, I will summarize what has been done for the kind of actual codec specification update. So you know that I have explained that advanced professional video codec is for measuring codec or professional video codec. I think some of the example you may well know is the kind of ProRes from Apple, or we see something from SMT as well. So the main difference that we are trying to achieve here is that make it as a kind of royalty-free codec by using the kind of technologies expired. So we've been also kind of working on the open source implementation, and then there's an organization called the Carnegie Software Foundation, which has been a kind of joint organization between Linux Foundation and AMPAS, who kind of doing some Oscar award. So there's a very interesting software open source organization. So we have suggested to create an open APV the open source project, and then they adapted. So kind of it's ongoing open source project. If you're interested in looking at the software, then you can go that GitHub, and then you can find it. So the codec ID has been revised several times. Now is kind of 0.3 version, and recently we have requested ISE to start to publication review, and then there has been some comments already received from the comments reviewers. Next page, please. Yep. So main change from the previous version, except the kind of all the bug fixes, is that so previously we had only 1 layer frame. Now we are having a 2-layer. So frame will be wrapped around as a kind of primitive bitstream unit, and then multiple primitive bitstream unit can be concatenated to create a single AU. AU is the same concept within all the MPEG codecs. So primitive bitstream unit can have either various type of frame. So kind of there's a request to consider multi-view thing. So there should be a kind of main view and then additional view and so on. And then there could be a kind of separate metadata or the filler. Kind of one of the importance is whenever you edit, you may not want to kind of read and write to filling some spaces by removing something and so on. So kind of maybe you can just kind of put the filler data to keep the entire size same and so on. So that's a kind of major improvement. And then if you go to next page, yeah. So main thing is a kind of coded frame will be considered like this. There will be a size of PVU and then header. Then there will be a frame header. then the series of tile size data, tile size data set, and then at the end there could be a kind of filler. So it's kind of a simple structure based on the tile combinations. Next page, please. So packetization mode has not been changed in concept, but since we are introducing AU in at a layer above frame, so the kind of low delay mode will be aligned with the AU instead of the frame. That's a major change. And then simple mode, you can just kind of cut anywhere in the kind of bitstream. You always need to start AU at the beginning of the payload header. So that's the only thing. If you want to go to the low delay mode, you always need to start your new payload whenever you have a tile start, so that kind of all the tile can be the kind of start of the RTP packet header. That's a kind of simple 2 different modes we are interested in. Next page, please. Oh yeah, so RTP packet header, no major difference between the kind of all the kind of MPEG codec things. Next page, please. Yep. Yeah.
Mo? You want a civic slide, Mo?
Huh?
Did you want me to switch back to a back?
Yeah, just
I
one
think
more
it's-
slide back.
yeah,
Yeah. First of all, I'll be reviewing the whole document. I got a request to review it from for the ISC stream, so
thank you.
I'll take a look at the whole document. One question about the marker bit. Historically, with other codecs, when they started adding these other things which you just added, things like subframes and the different layers of frames, there's confusion about whether or not the marker bit applies to the aggregate access unit
Right.
or layers within an access unit.
Oh, I think we definitely gonna consider this marker bit is for AU. Yeah, not the sublayer, because there's no way to know kind of in between. If you are going to simple mode always start AU, and then so
Okay.
yeah, so that's not AU. I will clarify that one. Okay, next page, please. Payload header, nothing has been changed. So only thing has been changed here is the next page. The bits, if you go to next page, there's payload type fields, indicating that where you were in the middle of, something fragmented or not. So kind of all the notions are now becoming AU instead of frame. So concepts are pretty the same. Next page, please. I'm kind of squeezing. Next page, please. Oh yeah. So I think all the same. Interesting thing you might want to know here is that you may have a kind of frame header repeated, since frame header was way kind of ahead of the packet. So you may want to repeat the frame header whenever you are sending the kind of individual tiles. And then if you think frame headers are repeated but same, then you may indicate that you don't have to read parse or this kind of frame header again. And then frame counter is used to down counting the kind of the packets consisting this part. It could be simple mode, it could be a kind of entire AU. If it's a kind of low delay mode, it could be part of tile, single tile. Next page. Payload format parameter, nothing has been changed. We have added the band, which is a kind of finer level, so that we have a level ID, which is kind of define the kind of maximum bit rate for different levels, and then there will be a kind of band ID in for single band. There could be multiple bands, so you can have a kind of more fine granular definition of level. And SDB parameters, I think I have explained this one previously, that so we don't think that this will be used for any bidirectional communication, but it could be more used for like a contribution. So you are sending the SDB parameter to the receiver that kind of pushing the data with this kind of configuration. So that will be simple SDB parameters. Next page, please. Yeah, so please review and make a comments. And I think we'll request for working group adoption whenever ID on APV becomes stable, means kind of passing several rounds of IS review and then ready for the next step. Then we might want to request for working group adoption of this payload format as well.
Sorry, Mo, again, just confusion. Are you planning to take this as an independent submission, or do you want it to be adopted in the work group and published as a
I
work
think
group?
the codec proper is an independent submission. The RTP payload would come to this working group.
Yeah,
Okay,
I want
is that
to,
right?
make a, payload format as
Here.
part of working group.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Codec, I don't think you are interested in.
No, we don't have the expertise.
Yeah, so, codec group is just kind of independent submission, but we want to kind of, develop payload format in the group.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So Gary first. Excuse me. I understand the ISC submission of the bit stream. Are you going to wait for that to reach the RFC editor before you adopt? Or I don't understand what stable means.
Yeah, so I think, we don't have to wait until the final publication, but I think there is a kind of, something like, technical review is done, but there's, kind of, step forward, like, editing and so on,
Okay,
which
edit,
may take
yeah.
a lot of time. So we don't have to wait for that time,
Yeah,
I think.
edit state's probably fairly stable.
Right, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Gurtej? Am I pronouncing that right?
Hi, Gurtej. So I wanted to understand, like, by putting the tiles in an access unit, AU. So there is no use case where you might want to just like start decoding one of the tiles before receiving the full access unit.
Oh yeah, that's a kind of low delay mode. Since you know the boundary of tiles, you don't have to wait until the end of AU, but you can start to decode individual tiles.
But then your marker bit in that situation, will it represent the end of the tile or the end of the AU?
End of AU. So whenever you have a marker bit, then you know that previous AU has been ended. So you are starting a new AU, right?
But an AU can have many tiles in it.
Right.
And you want to start decoding the tile when you've received the full tile. How do you know that you've received the full tile?
Oh, you mean in the middle of AU?
Yeah.
No, I don't think you are. It's a good idea to start decoding tiles within in the middle of AU. It's more about you don't have to wait the entire AU to be received, but you can start decoding the tiles.
Okay.
Yeah. So
within the AU, there is enough information that you can understand where the tile ends, so you can start decoding it. You don't have to wait for the full AU to be received.
Yeah, we could do that, but then we need to have more bits to indicate, where you are. Right?
So, I would think that when the on this slide, when the fragment counter goes to 0, you've finished the tile, so you can decode it, right?
Right.
Okay. So
so we want to make sure that you know the beginning of AU, and then you know that you have received the first tile completely, so you can start the decoding. You don't have to wait until the end of AU, right?
Okay,
but
so the fragment counter represents where the tile ends. Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to know
we don't want to have a people to start in the middle of tile or middle of AU, right? Since it may not be really relevant.
Okay, thank you.
Content. Yeah.
All right. So are we? Any other comments from anybody? That was your last slide, right?
Okay. Yep.
All
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. And I think we're running ahead of schedule, so that's good. So, because I gave Eric relatively little time, and there was a presentation that was as time permits. Mo, did you have something to say?
Yeah, sorry. One last thing. When you mentioned the fragment counter, I didn't realize until then that it's a down counter. So, and this is especially very high bit rate video, right? So the only concern is that whenever you have something like that, you have to buffer up a lot to know how big it is, right? You have to know I have 7,000 fragments. That means you have to buffer up the entire thing, an entire frame, which could be a lot of bits, right? So you can't stream it. You can't stream it as it comes, like line by line or something. And this is typically for like 422 stuff, which is line by line. So it seems like there may be something you want to think about, whether there's an optimization that you could avoid pre-signaling the entire frame size when your source format is line by line, not block.
Oh yeah, there's always a kind of a size indication. There's an indication for entire AU size. Then there's an indication for PU size. There's an indication for tile size. So you know the size of whatever entity you are receiving before you start.
that was my point, is that in order, that makes it easier for decoding, but it makes it higher latency and higher buffering for encoding, because you have to do the encoding of the entire size of the thing that you have to pre-fill in a header. So you have to probably encode the entire frame, buffer up the entire frame before you can write the length and the number of fragments. And for high rate video that is naturally, streaming in lines anyway, it may be worth an optimization to figure out how to get rid of those early frame counters.
Respond at the mic, please, so that people probably can hear you.
In practice, this kind of codec, we somehow decide the size of AU or tile before encoding, right? So because so we somehow kind of try to have a fixed size AU, fixed size tile, fixed size frame, and then if you have a kind of empty bytes, then you can just kind of fill it, right? So then you don't have to wait to know the size in this kind of high rate codecs.
All right, thank you.
All right, hello.
I think raise that up. You're tall.
All right.
Or hold it in your hand.
Maybe like this.
Can talk some more. Can people hear? Okay.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Good. All right. Erik Sprong. I have 2 new proposals to talk about today. The first one here, corruption detection, does have an IPR connected to it. Our legal team wants to be the ones to push the disclose buttons. I'm waiting for them at this moment, but should happen within the next few days. Right. So the problem I'm actually trying to solve here is this. You have an input frame you want to encode. You set up a bunch of different configs, reference structure control, and things that you give to an encoder, which is a complex piece of software. It produces a bitstream out that you need to packetize, and then you add RTP header extensions and whatnot to describe the dependency structures in it that needs to be concise with both what's in the bitstream and what you set up there and the config you wanted to use. You get RTP packets out that you send. There might be some packet loss and reordering and stuff on the way to an SFU that might do complex things like stream thinning and rewriting of headers and things. It goes out to receiver, again on the lossy link. And then there's a complex video jitter buffer that needs to understand the reference structures and which frames you actually need and which packets contain which frames. But eventually you get the full frame out and sent to a decoder, which is a complex piece of software. And then out, hopefully not, but sometimes you get a frame out that looks like garbage. And these situations can be very hard to debug, especially since we collect a bunch of stats to monitor the system, right? It's like frame rate and bit rate and QP and latency and things. All of those in this scenario looks fine. Frames are flowing through the system, but the output is garbled. So usually in practice, what we have to rely on is end user reports saying it's pixelated, is what I often hear. And we basically then have to wait for enough angry users that we can correlate to something that's wrong in the system. We would be much better off if we could actually detect this in the system immediately and see that something's wrong. So we can either just try to recover by sending a keyframe or switching to a software decoder or whatever, or just collect more logs so that we can quickly make correlations between these errors and some part of the system. So how would you then actually figure out that something is wrong in this scenario? Next slide, please. So the pretty simple method that we tried that works surprisingly well is to just take a small handful of randomly selected samples from the raw input picture. And once you've encoded it, you put these into an RTP header extension and piggyback it with the compressed frame that you're sending to the other side. Next slide, please. And there you do basically the same thing. You decode, you look at exactly the same locations in the image. You look like what are the sample values that I got out of the decoder compared to what the sender saw on the send side. And if they differ by a significant margin, then it's likely that you have a corruption on your hand. So next slide, please. So there's one big caveat, of course, is that we're dealing normally with lossy compression. So in low bitrate scenarios especially, you do get a lot of distortions that are expected just from the compression. And so we want to suppress those. So what we do there is just, basically we do an averaging, where it's a Gaussian blur kernel that we apply to these locations that we sample. And depending on the amount of distortion, we make that sort of smaller or larger. So if it's a lot of compression, we sort of look at sort of the rougher structure. It's essentially a low pass filter, right? We also allow a small amount of deviation from the truth, even with this filtering. So next slide, please. So this is what a header extension looks like. The first byte there is an index into pseudo-random generator that we use to generate the locations in the frame that we look at, so that we don't have to send explicit coordinates, because those coordinates would take more space than the samples that we're interested in. So we just need to keep in sync sender and receiver where we are in this random sequence. Next slide, please. And then the next two have to do with that filtering that I mentioned. It's the standard deviation of the blur kernel that we apply. And then we have two different sort of allowed error thresholds that we accept. One for the UMA channels and one for the chroma channels. So they have different resolutions. They have slightly different properties. Next slide, please. And then with a 1 byte header extension, you can fit 13 samples into this thing. Yes, next. So the way we've defined this is that you should set these filter values. You have to determine those, like what should we actually use. And we say that these should be set so that 99.5% of samples are below this allowed error threshold if you apply the given blur filter on both sides. And in this draft, we don't say exactly how you should come up with those filter settings for a given place, but what we do in Chromium, which works well, is to just look at the QP of the encoded frame and do a mapping of that. And that's sort of set so that those mappings have to be per codec type, right? There's different QP ranges for VP9 versus H.264 or whatnot. But within implementations, that gives you a good baseline. But if you have very specific knowledge about how your specific encoder works, you can set those things even tighter if you want to. Next slide, please. And then on the receiver, yeah, I think this could do a little bit of improvement. It's a bit hand-wavy at the moment, even though it seems to work well in practice, is that we take the deltas between the sample pairs, reduce it by the error threshold, square all of those, and take half of the average. And then if you're doing this in the browsers, there's already defined the WebRC stats that you can push these things into. Next slide, please. Header extensions are not encrypted by SRTP. It's not seen as part of the payload. And this is essentially a sparse representation of the entire image. So if you eavesdrop on enough of these samples, and it's a static camera, you can essentially reconstruct the entire image, which is of course not good. So we need the header extension to be encrypted. Right now in Chromium, we're using RFC 6904. But down the line, once 9335, also known as Cryptex, is actually implemented everywhere, that's what we're planning to move to instead. Next slide, please. Right. And so this is available in Chromium M132, if anyone wants to try it out. There's an experimental header extension that you need to opt into to get it to work, but it's, yeah, looking pretty promising at this point. So I'm interested in hearing questions.
Mosinati. I was surprised to see this because I had thought that almost every major service and implementation has switched to what I'll call lossless or artifact-free video decoding. Basically, you'll freeze before you try to render an artifact. And so if there's any gap in any sequence, you just stop decoding and you freeze until you know you've resynced. Does Chromium not do that anymore?
That's typically what we want, yes. But there are edge cases where this does not happen.
Yeah.
So the picture I had there at the beginning was from an AMD VP9 decoder, but only using the DXVA API, where it failed to parse the resilient node bit, and instead of giving up, it just produced garbage out.
Oh, so you mean even though the bit stream was fine,
yeah,
the decoder was corrupted?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're detecting bad decoders.
Yeah, well, detecting any.
I mean, I don't want to point fingers, but hardware is usually the culprit. We had another one with VP9 hardware encode, where if you issued 2 keyframes consecutively, the bit stream was corrupted, but everything in the RTP chain looked fine. So it also took a bunch of time to figure out.
Got it. Different use case.
Yep.
So the reporting the results of this, you're planning to do WebRTC stats rather than any kind of RTP level feedback, right?
That's the idea right now.
Okay. Okay. And at this point, you're just looking for comment from people rather than calling for adoption?
Yeah, I think so. Sort of read the draft, comment on the mail thread or whatever. And if there's enough support, then maybe in the next interim I'll call for adoption.
Okay, thank you. And you're next also? Oh, Stefan?
Yeah, hi. I wonder whether a header extension for something like this is an appropriate mechanism, considering what big a headache header extensions can be. Wouldn't it be a better idea either to have some like meta payload that sits in between your main payload for VP9, for example, and the RTP header, which allows you to transfer that, or put these sample information into a different session and tie those two together? Wouldn't that be an option? Thank you.
Maybe. I mean, the reason we didn't put this into the sort of main payload today and have encryption for free is that typically when we do end-to-end encryption, all of this is, well, actually that is, it's possible to do that. There was technical challenges in doing it in a specific implementation was part of it. It's just also quite easy to negotiate in and out of this with how STP negotiation works today. So it also is part of it. The bytes need to be transmitted anyways.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this one is a lot more drafty than the previous one. So basically what I want to do is have a way of understanding at the sender side which frames the receiver has not only received but also decoded. So the sender can reason about the state of reference buffers at the receiver. So next slide, please. Yeah, and so the classic use case for this is LTR, long-term references. And that's not only one thing. There's many different versions of this. It's everything from having a recovery point every few seconds to super low latency places where they say, don't encode anything and don't reference any buffers that we're not sure the receiver already has to avoid retransmissions. So this is designed to be as flexible as possible, basically. So in this case, we have an RTP header extension again that you use to request feedback about the state of frames. And then you get an RTCP message back with a bit vector saying basically if these frames have been decoded or not. What's not in here right now is a way to actually identify frames via IDs. So the idea is we have basically a prioritized list of different sources of frame IDs, and we use the first one in the list that's available. Right now, I only put the fantastic AV1 dependency descriptors in there because I love them so much, but of course, we want to have other sources available as well. Next slide, please. So this is what the draft looks like right now. So then if you're doing sort of classic LTR, you assign a frame to be an LTR frame, you would essentially put one of those RTP header extensions on there and say that I want feedback for this frame and this frame only, and you would get back that RTCP message, hopefully with one bit of information really in it. But you could also then cover a lot more if you wanted to. So next frame, next slide. Let's skip this one. So I guess the big question is then why not use anything that's already available? So we have a bunch of packet level feedback messages already. NAC is probably a no-go, but transport-wide congestion control or RFC 8888 have sort of positive acts of packets. So you, in most circumstances, can infer on the sender side, if you know the mapping, which frames were received or not. But it's not resilient to loss, that feedback, and it's also not a guarantee that even if the frame is received, that it will be decoded. There's a message called RPSI, which is very codec specific. And I think the most damning thing is that in the H266 spec, they say RPSI must not be used. So I think it's kind of a no-go. There is an existing, unfortunately expired draft called LNTF, or loss notification, that sort of addresses the same problem, but has a few issues, especially in that, like if you're doing the S modes according to the W3C SVC spec, where you have multiple independent simulcast streams within one SSRC, you can't really determine which of those streams you're acting or not. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just a draft to put the first suggestion up there, but what I'm really interested in is who else is interested in this problem and wants to discuss and define something to solve this problem.
Magnus Westland Eriksson, is this supporting if you have tiled video streams?
I haven't really thought about tiled video streams.
Yeah, because I guess that's one of the complexities when you get to like 266 or things like that. If you're going to reference the right, you might have to reference which tile is it that's okay and which isn't.
Yeah. So the frame ID would be rather a tile ID than a frame ID in that case. It's an interesting use case. I feel like it's a problem that should be solvable with basically the same method.
Gurtej from Apple. Is that also the reason why you can't just use like RTP timestamps as the identifier? You want to use the exact frame identifier because there might be multiple layers almost.
Yeah, exactly. If you have RTP timestamps, you would need like a spatial ID or something in addition to the timestamp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in this, so we can probably collaborate on this.
Definitely.
Mosinati, I'm very aware of systems that have dealt with this problem before. I think it's an important problem, but in some of the experience that I've seen, trying to do frame IDs and all of that becomes more complex and runs into other issues and more overhead. Whereas using common feedback. Before we had common feedback, some systems, just implemented ACK feedback, but now we have common feedback, and you can send that as fast as you need to be able to give your LTR recovery times, reasonable guarantees that you have the information. So then the sender just has to keep, accounting of what frames it sent with which RTP sequence numbers, and then you have everything that you need to do. Very sophisticated LTR schemes at the sender, and more importantly, in conferencing systems where you have multiple senders, you don't run into issues with something as naive as a frame ID getting mismapped into something for a different sender. Whereas with RTP, that the sequence number is always tied to an SSRC, always tied to a specific source. So there's less chance of having mismatches between frame IDs coming from different users. So those are some of the issues that I've seen other systems deal with. I think it's a good thing to solve it in a standard way. I haven't seen a standard for it yet, although I know many different systems do some flavor of this on their own secret sauce. It would be nice to see a standard. I don't necessarily think that the frame ID concept is the right standard, though.
Right, I agree with you, 95%. But there's the 5% that I want to solve that bugs me. So looking forward to a deeper discussion than we have time for now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so please take a look at that if you're interested and give feedback to Eric. And we do have time for Mathis's presentation. Time permits.
All right, so this is just a short update on an individual draft that I think first presented about 1.5 years ago in Prague, I think. It's about a payload format for geometry-based point cloud compression, which is similar to V3C that we talked about at the beginning of the session, but it uses geometry encoding for point clouds directly. Next slide. So what are point clouds? This is a data structure that is used to represent three-dimensional data. It's basically a long list of points where each point can be associated with one or more or zero or more attributes, such as a color or reflectance. These are acquired by LiDAR devices or LiDAR sensors or radar sensors, or can be acquired by using multiple camera setups. And example use cases are 3D representations of vehicles, for example, or of the surrounding of a vehicle. Next slide, please. So there's this codec that I mentioned called GPCC, which uses or encodes the geometry data and the attributes of point clouds in 2 bit streams, or in 1 bit stream, and then geometry data is encoded separately from the attributes, which is important because that uses these 10 data units. I didn't list all of them here, but you get the concept. There are parameter sets like in other codecs, and then we have geometry data units, which is the stream for the encoded geometry, and then we have attribute data units for the attributes. And then the NXB of that codec standard describes a type length value format for this bit stream for all these units. And we wrote a short, relatively early work payload format for this. Next slide. That uses the standard RTP header with these standard fields. A timestamp is defined as the earliest sampling time of a point cloud frame. And then we have a very short payload header, which only has 2 fields, which is once is the unit of the type of the unit, which could be a single unit. It could be an aggregation unit, which includes multiple of these encoding units in the same RTP packet, or a fragmentation unit if you have to split one unit over multiple RTP packets. And then it has the type of the unit, so it would say it's a geometry data unit or a parameter set or so on. And we made a very little update to this draft recently, which is only that we changed the length field, or the length field we used in aggregation units to indicate how long the following unit is before the next one starts, because in the past we used a variable length integer to indicate the length of the following unit, which turned out to be complex to implement and useless because we don't need that long length, or don't like large lengths. So we replaced this by a fixed size integer now, which is easier to implement and should always be enough. I think that was all my slides for now. We just wanted to give a short update on this, that we're still working on it. It's still a relatively early draft. Would be interested to hear feedback if there are people interested in this. And if so, then maybe we might ask for adoption at a later time, but it's probably a bit early for that.
All right, so if you have any comments on that, please give feedback to the authors. And after that, I think we are, despite this, we are done 7 minutes early, despite the fullness of our agenda. So good work, everybody, being efficient. We have been in the custom of scheduling an interim, generally one interim like halfway between now and the next meeting. So we'll probably schedule that for, I don't know, May or June. I need to look at that, figure out when people are available. But so we'll probably do a poll for that sometime relatively soon. And other than that, anybody have any other business they would like to discuss? And I guess I just ask, can you, Mo, can you, or one of the note takers, can you just mention what the action items we have for the chairs to do, so we make sure we know what we need to do? Are the action items for the chairs called out in the notes?
I can also share. I've written down a few notes for us.
Okay, great, thanks, and we'll just figure that out.
But I can just name them quickly to see if
Sure,
I missed something. We're gonna park S-frame, maybe write on a mailing list why we do that, so it's documented. ROQ, we're gonna do an initial working group last call. No call for adoption for SDP yet. We're still waiting for that one. For the haptics one, we're gonna do a working group last call, and the rest, nothing.
Okay, sounds good. So thank you all very much, and we will see you at a virtual interim sometime in the next few months, and then hopefully all of you in Madrid. Yeah.
Great job, chairs.
Which? Oh yeah, Marius, can you, if you could put the notes, your notes into the working group, into the session notes, that'd probably be useful.
Yes, I will do that.
Yeah, great. And Spencer, did you have something you were going to say?
I was just saying, great job to the chairs, including our new chair.
Okay. Yeah,
thank you. It was a pleasure.
Welcome, Marius. Thank you. All right, I'll see you all soon, I hope. Bye-bye.
See you. Have a nice remaining week.
Yeah, thank you. Everything.